Tony Parsons, welcome to the Great Big Book Club. How are you?
Fine, thank you for having me.
Oh, congratulations on your new book, Taken.
Yeah, it's a strange time to have a book out. You know, I think it's you know, with all the bookstores closed and nobody going out and all that. You know, so you know, it's for me it's okay because you know, I know I'll still be in the game next year. But there's a lot of first-time authors, a lot of young authors who I think, you know, have had all their events cancelled and all that, and I think it's devastating for them. So it's a tough time, but people are still reading books, still buying books, and yeah, hang in there.
But it's the sixth in the series. So you've got a massive fan base already, so you're totally fine with your sales, I presume.
Well, you know, I mean, that's the sixth book in the series. That's what I've been doing over the last 6 years, and it's been strange writing a book that wasn't part of that series. There's something strangely comforting about writing a series. You know, when you begin it, you're afraid, you know, that the interest will die off or the quality will die off, and all. You know, I mean, I really felt quite paralysed after the first one. You know, I felt, you know, it was pretty good, and I felt I wasn't sure. In fact, I said to my editor, I had a long contract. I said, I don't think I can write a better book than that. I'll put everything into that one. I don't think I can write a better book than that. And she said, can you write one that's as good? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And she said, well, go and do that then. Yeah. So that was, you know, and you know, six books is a nice length of a series. You know, you do see writers getting a bit bored with their creatures, with their creations, and feeling a bit claustrophobic in a series. And I'd never got to that stage. Six was a good number to bail out.
So it's the Dr. Max Wolfe series, just to be clear to everybody. DC Max Wolfe, sorry. And this one, Taken, has already been described as whip it fast, twisting like a moped in traffic. And I absolutely, totally agree. I mean, it's fantastic. It's so sharp, fast, and sort of, it's almost like watching a sort of television show in a sort of weird way, because it's so visual and in your front load. Can you just tell us a tiny bit about the plot first?
Yeah. So this is the sixth book in the series, and it's about a woman who's kidnapped, and she's kidnapped by these professional criminals who think that they're abducting the mistress of this old school criminal thug and mastermind, and they take the wrong woman. So they take the wrong woman and they cross the wrong detective, and the story is unraveling the mystery. You know, yeah, there's a central mystery in all these DC Max Wolfe books, and this one is, did they really take the right mistress? Did they take the right one or the wrong one? And yeah, so it's that trail, and yeah, I'm pleased with it, and I'm pleased to go out on the series with a high. You know, I'm glad.
It's the last one, then, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to return to it one day, but I'd like to, you know, if I've got that long, who knows how long any of us have got. I'd like to return when he's got a small daughter, he's a single dad, he's got a little girl in these six books, and I'd quite like to return to it when his daughter's a teenager. You know, I think that's an interesting dynamic. You know, a father and a teenage daughter, I think is you know, a rich mind.
Well, you're quite interested in parental sort of father-child relationships. A lot of your books have been dissecting that. I mean, your very famous one, Man and Boy, which is over 20 years old now. Amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that you really enjoy writing about, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Man and Boy really came from the heart, and you know, I started writing it when my mum had terminal cancer, and I really felt, when I sat down and write, I really felt poised between the two generations. You know, the generation, because my dad had died a lot earlier, and I really felt poised between the generation that came before me, and I had a son who was growing up fast, he was a young teenager, and the generation that was coming after me, and I really did feel poised, you know, in the kind of right at the apex of that circle of life, if I can say that without sounding like a song from The Lion King. And it came from the heart, and I do find it endlessly fascinating. I just find it, you know, you find your subject. Every writer finds their own subjects, and whatever I'm writing or whatever genre I'm writing, I think that that remains fascinating. You know, the dynamic between parents and their children, because of course it changes. You know, it changes. I've got a daughter who's just left school, just about to go to university, maybe if they open the universities. And you know, and a lot of the Max Wolfe book is my nostalgia for when she was very young, for when she was small, because I miss that. I miss her being a little girl, and she's not that little girl. We become something else, and it comes to a point where you don't recognise your kid as the small son or daughter that you had. And I do find it's interesting. It's endlessly fascinating, and people seem to like me writing about that stuff. You know, it seems to be the way that I connect most easily with people. Writing about the relationship between fathers and sons, and daughters and mothers, and all that. Yeah.
Your dog also gets quite a lot of airtime within the series, Stan.
Yeah.
Do you have the King Charles Spaniel, or is it?
Yeah, hold on.
Oh, there's the real Stan.
The real Stan, who only talks to me through his lawyers these days. Say hello to Imogen, buddy. Okay, I'm going to let you go back. And I mean, as a writer, you know yourself, you're constantly looking for material. You're constantly looking for, you know, we're cannibals. We really are cannibals, and you're on the look always for great stuff to write about. And we got this dog nearly 10 years ago now, and I just thought and he's so important to me. I mean, when I get up in the morning, the first couple of hours of every day of my life are not spent with my wife or my daughter or my friends or my colleagues. It's spent with Stan. So I'm just incredibly close to him. I'm just unbelievably close to him. We have a really, really close relationship, and so I had to include in. The Max Wolfe series is livened up with a few characters that are drawn completely from life. My personal trainer, is a guy called Fred Kindle. There's a boxing trainer in the book called Fred, who's totally based on Fred, who looks like this kind of, silver-haired pirate. And but dogs own my heart.
They're crucial. But,
yeah.
Can I ask you, because you've got, the Slaughterman, Die Last, all in the whole series, each book seems to have an incredibly complicated plot. I mean, Die Last, you had 12 women in a refrigerated lorry and one missing passport. The Slaughterman was the idea of a serial killer coming back. I mean, this is a boring question for all writers, but where do you get your ideas from? Do you read newspapers? Are you gleaning? How do you plot a book like that? I
think you're constantly on the look for that initial spark. You're constantly on the look for the parameters of the story. I mean, I'm interested in the history of London, and I was reading a lot about Newgate Prison, and I was interested in visiting what was left of Newgate, and it doesn't really exist anymore, because what happened with Newgate, which was our big prison for centuries, it's where Charles Dickens used to go and watch public hangings. It's where in Oliver Twist, it's where Fagin is hung, and they used to have massive, great public executions there. And I was reading about Newgate and thinking, I'd love to see, it must be something of it left. And actually, only the remains of Newgate is under Central Criminal Court, the Old Bailey.
Wow.
Because people became quite ashamed, I think, of Newgate, because it was a brutal part of very, almost medieval criminal justice system. So it was flattened at the turn of the last century, and they built the Old Bailey on top of it. But it still exists there. And I went along there one day and I was shown around, and there's still actually quite a lot of it. And it's not preserved, it's not conserved, there's no like blue plaque on it. But the central corridor where they used to take people to be hung at these hangings that Dickens watched and wrote about and campaigned against, the corridor, it becomes more narrow as you walk down the corridor, because people would hear the crowd, see the hangman, know they were walking to their death, and people would go fighting mad. People would just go crazy. So the corridor that comes down, and that's all still there.
Wow! So in order to stop them from moving,
stopping from fighting and throwing punches and running. So and that's still there. And it's down below the Old Bailey exists, but there's not, you know, there are not tours there. You need someone to take you in there and then take you down and then to keep going. And I saw that and I thought, if you can't get a book out of this, then you're in the wrong game, you know, because it's just such an incredible experience seeing it. And I like that kind of thing. Where it's sort of like privileged access, really, that very few people have seen it. So it's nice. It's a nice thing to write about. Not many people have been down there. So you're looking for, especially with you know, with the Max Wolfe series, you're just looking for that initial spark. You know, my editor said to me, "Have you ever been to Highgate Cemetery?" And Highgate Cemetery is people, the famous persons, but everybody knows the Karl Marx grave. People know the Karl. But there's another part of the cemetery, which is where George Michaels happens to be buried, which is not open to the public. And that's one of the most incredible parts of London. I think it's probably the highest part of London. And there's incredible Victorian architecture in there, massive great Egyptian tombs. And that was another one where I saw it and thought, this is your book. This is your book.
But your books do read like a love letter to London. I mean, they're very much established here, aren't they? You proper landmarks, proper street names, and you can feel yourself moving through the city as you're reading your book. I mean, that's what's incredibly dynamic about it, actually.
I do think that you need a strong sense of place, whether it's, you know, Chandler writing about Los Angeles, you know, or Conan Doyle writing about Victorian London. I think that's part of it, that atmosphere. It's almost sort of the city becomes another character.
But when you were a journalist, were you were embedded, weren't you, in Savile Row, Vice Squad?
Yep.
So is that where a lot of your characters for the series come from?
Yeah, I was a washed-up music journalist at the time, so I had plenty of time on my hands, you know. And I had a lot of friends who worked for women's magazines, who worked for Elle, and they would get me to write about things from a male perspective. They were quite interested in Sally Brampton, Louise Chun. All my mates worked for women's magazines, and they would get me in as like the token guy. And the idea was that I would write about this and write about pornography from a male point of view. Obviously, it's completely different. This is, you know, pre-internet, pre-digital. But I quite liked hanging out with them. You know, with the relationship between journalists and police was quite close at the time. You know, later things happened and they fell out, but at the time there was a degree of trust on both sides, and I was just hanging out with them and like kicking down doors and up against the wall, motherfucker, and all that. It was enormous fun, you know. It was fantastic fun. And the funny thing was that the people that I was hanging out with, these young plainclothes detectives, they were kind of the same age as the bands that I'd been hanging out with. You know, they were it was the same generation, and I did like that. And when I decided to write the Max Wolfe series, you know, I thought about it for a couple of years. I cashed in my pension, cashed in my life savings, and just thought about it for a couple of years. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to avoid cliches. And the cliche of the London detective is Scotland Yard, working in Scotland Yard. I'd never been in Scotland Yard at the time. I'd been in Savile Row. I'd been in West End Central. And a lot of people don't realise that Savile Row, they think of, you know, the Beatles playing on the roof of Savile Row. They think of the bespoke tailors, but there's a large chunk of Savile Row is this big police station. So I thought, well, I've been in there, you know, and I don't, you know, my research is not forensic. You know, I try to do as much research as I need, but use imagination too. And I, you know, I thought I'd seen enough of it, and just the fact that I'd been inside it and spent time there, and I knew it was there. I thought it's a cool place to set it, and you know, because then you've got Soho next door, and he can buy his triple espresso. He drinks triple espresso. He can go to the Bar Italia and buy triple espresso. So it gives me, you know, a chance to write about, you know, a little cafe that I love in Soho. So just, you know, it's all these things work, and it just gives it flavour and it gives it depth, I think. Yeah.
When it comes to plot, I'm terrible at plot. Do you work backwards? Do you know where your ending is, and then you go backwards and you deliberately create the cul-de-sacs and the? I mean, how do you begin to start doing something like that?
Well, like most writers, I'm interested in writing. I'm interested in the experience and the lived life of other writers. And one of the things that I read that struck me, someone said, writers are either architects or gardeners, and talking about novelists. And architects are people that lay out the complete plans. They've got the very detailed plans about how this thing is going to be built. And gardeners are kind of pruning and chopping off stuff and sticking stuff in the dirt. And of course, actually, because it takes at least a year to write a novel, and you can be both architect and gardener, you know, and that's what I try to be. I try to be both architect and gardener. I've got an outline. I kind of know where I'm going. I've got a rough idea of the world of the story, and it becomes clearer as I get into it. But then, you know, you've got plenty of time to let your imagination wander. You've got plenty of time to make detours, you know, and you know, it's taking such a long time that your mind should be open to other stuff, and you know, working out what doesn't really work, and what you don't need to do, and what needs to be improved. And the good thing about getting older and becoming more experienced is, you know, when you're not there, you know, when it's not good enough, you know, young writers, inexperienced writers can kid themselves about the quality of the work. And when you're an old hand who've been doing it for a while, you can't kid yourself when it's not there yet. But you know that actually, if you put the time in and put the hours in, and you know, get thinking, get your imagination working, you can usually get there. You can usually solve these problems. I think, you know, young writers and inexperienced writers, amateur writers, they beat themselves up too much because they think it's gonna come too easily, too quickly, and they're frustrated when it doesn't just pour out of them perfect. And it's not like that. It's not like that for anybody. You know, Norman Mailer. I read a lot of fiction. When I'm writing fiction, I love to read fiction because I find it inspirational. And even if you don't like something, it's still inspirational because you think, well, I'll do it my way. I won't do it like that. But Norman Mailer said that he never read fiction because it was like being on the floor of a garage and having an engine of an old banger all completely dismantled and full of grease and meaningless chunks of metal. And then you read someone's novel and it's like a Ferrari just drove past, you know. And I can understand that frustration. I can understand that sense of frustration, but I don't work like that. I kind of just try to, yeah. So I try to be both architect and gardener. I try to have that plan because you've got that security. And when on the tough days, the dark days, the days when it's not coming, the days when you feel uninspired, the days when you think, actually, my best stuff is probably behind me. On those hard days, which come to anybody, you've got this template. You can keep walking. You can keep walking. You know, I saw a documentary about American GI prisoners in the Philippines once, and this guy that survived, he said he never thought about getting back to his parents or to his girlfriend. He said never even thought about surviving. He thought about getting to the next rock. Just make it to the next rock. Just walk to the next rock. This is like the Bataan Death March. So if you know, and I think that what works on the Bataan Death March also works when you're writing a novel. Just get to the next rock. You know, make it to the next rock, and that's how you climb Everest.
I completely agree. And also, what's interesting about your technique of writing is it is proper best-selling writing. I mean, I remember I went to a festival a couple of years ago and heard Sebastian Fuchs talking about how he wrote when he was writing Bond, and how, you know, you have to have big, bold words and big, bold sentences, and the verbs have got to be beefy. And reading Taken, which is brilliant, I was suddenly thinking, my God, this is proper best-selling writing at its absolute peak. I mean, would you agree that's what you have to do with the style?
I think it's true, but although I think you're you're also a prisoner of your limited ability. You know, I'm like writing the best books I can. You know, I'm not capable of rivaling Hilary Mantel for the Booker Prize. I wouldn't, but I can tell a story. I can tell a tale, and I think that's yeah. So that's what I try to do, and I am a populist. I like best-selling books. I mean, that doesn't mean that they can't be great, and the really good ones. I've been thinking about this a lot, and there are certain books that I return to. Certain books that I go back to, like Secret History by Donna Tartt, Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and I will reread those books every year. And I've been thinking about, what is it that you love about them? What is it that you love about them, and you can learn from them, and you can try to replicate in your own stuff. And I think what a lot of it is they're very difficult to categorize, those books. You know, a lot of them, like Rebecca, is a murder story and also a love story. You know, it's Secret History is a campus novel, but it's also a murder mystery. It's about friendship, and so that's what I try to do. I do. It's important to me. I always feel incredibly disappointed if a book doesn't get to number one, and they don't usually get to number one. You know, they don't usually get to number one.
That's not true. They always do.
Sometimes they do, but I feel bitterly disappointed, because that's how we keep score, and that's how we record the love and feel the love of the readers. But you're constantly competing with everybody else, and also yourself. And it's difficult, especially after a book like Man and Boy, when you've had that kind of, which is really like a lottery win. It's really like just 6 balls coming up. It's that freakish, because you just alight on material that millions of people respond to, and it's actually got little to do with you, because you've written other books that just don't strike that kind of chord in so many human hearts. And after you've had that kind of success, it kind of makes you self-conscious, but you have to remember that it was written completely unself-consciously. It came totally from the heart. And so when you think, well, what did they like about that? And, which makes it sound more cynical than it is. It's also because you don't want to disappoint people. You want the people that have liked you. You want to, you want them to stick with you.
I noticed at the beginning of Taken that you have dedicated this book to Nick Logan.
Oh, yeah.
Who was my employer and your employer. Yeah. I wasn't at the NME, sadly, but you were.
You're too young.
No,
yeah.
But I'm just wondering, what was it about the NME that basically created this generation of incredible writers?
Well, it was partly to do with the music. It was partly to do with people that had been kids in the 60s and actually it goes all the way through. It goes also kids in the 80s and the 90s. So partly it was the music, and partly it was the technologies that people were obsessed with, the magazines that they loved and the newspapers that they loved. They were really important to them, and I was, before I ever worked at the NME, I was an obsessive reader of the NME. We sell like 250,000 every week. I mean, we sold newspapers in quantities that national newspapers would be envious of these days. So partly the music was so great. There was a lot to write about. There was a lot to write about, and the NME always needed that. Always needed a vibrant local scene, so that you could, you could have a beer with the Sex Pistols or stay up with Iggy Pop or whatever it was. So it was that, and Nick had the vision to realise that he needed, people that were completely immersed in this music, who lived for it, who, it was really the window we saw the world through. Really, it was so important to us. So important to. I think that whole kind of last 40 years of the 20th century, really, music was that central to young people, and it was, and also the NME. It was different from Rolling Stone, which was probably the equivalent in America. Rolling Stone grew older, so you got, Rolling Stone accepted that there was like 75-year-old Bob Dylan fans and Rolling Stone fans, whereas the NME every few years, and partly it was the lifestyle. I joined when I was 22, left when I was 25, and I was, 70 in human terms. I was just completely worn out. There's no way I could have done another 3 years. It wasn't, it wasn't something that you could keep up, because we were living the life. We were really living the life, and but we were lucky that we had that. I think Nick was key. I think Nick Logan was key. So it all came together, where print journalism was, where the music was. But Nick was really the guy that lit the fire, because he would give people a chance, and he would give you kind of a second chance. He gave me second and third chance when I, did bad things, when I got into fights in the office, when we were caught taking illicit substances, because, you know, we were in a massive great tower block with, like, you know, 50 other magazines, and, you know, people would suddenly realize, you know, there's someone having a heroin overdose in the review room, you know. We were kind of around very, very straight offices, you know. I remember the woman from Horse and Hound across the other side of the corridor used to come in and turn the music down. She used to come in and turn the music down, you know, when Nick Kent was, you know, reviewing Marquee Moon, you know, by television. And Nick was very forgiving, you know. He was very forgiving. He was very forgiving, very supportive mentor in a industry where there wasn't a lot of time for reflection and support, because every week we had to get this paper out, and you know, and it was quite demanding, and people were, you know, people were pushing their bodies and their minds and their souls to the limits with you know, with everything that was around at the time. You know, it was a strange period. It was that strange little, you know, very pure, innocent time of freedom when the world was post-pill and pre-AIDS. And if there were two things that were never going to kill you, it was sex and drugs. You know, that's what we thought, you know. And so it was a great time. It was a great time. But I think Nick Logan was key. I think Nick was key. And I think that...
but he went on to do Arena magazine and I mean, so many other magazines as well. It feels like he sort of curated a career of a generation. I mean, even people like, you know, Stuart McConey came through, Catelyn Moran came through, the NME. It was like a sort of finishing school for writers in a weird way.
Yeah, James Brown, Dylan, you know, it's just so many people, you know, Dylan Jones later at the Face and Arena. And he had that great, I mean, really built it on the underground, you know, the underground press, that people like Charles Shaw Murray and Nick Kent were working for underground papers, and the underground press was collapsing. And he saw that they could, you know, there was a space for them, because, you know, Nick Kent was spending weekends with Keith Richards. I mean, these people, you know, David Bowie was going round to Charles Shaw Murray's house and listening to soul records and thinking, you know, this is the kind of music to make. You know, people were very, very close to the music, very close to the bands. But I think Nick, you know, Nick saw that that's where the talent was, because we were all people that we would never have got a job on the Times. You know, we would never have got a job on the Daily Mirror. They weren't interested in us, and you know, actually discovered when you left the enemy, you discovered they'd never even heard of you. You know, you know, you thought you're actually quite important, and that we're carving out quite a nice career. And then when you left the confines of the NME, these people, these grown-ups, had never heard of you. Yeah, so.
That's hilarious. And are you writing again now, or are you just going to have a rest and think about getting your sort of ducks in a row for a new series? Or
yeah, no, I've written psychological thriller. Just signed off on it. Just handed it in, which comes out in January 2021. Which is called Your Neighbour's Wife, and it's like one of those books I was talking about. It's a murder mystery wrapped in a love story. So it's a psychological thriller, but it's also a portrait of marriage. So I've finished that, and I've just started the new one. And I'm kind of struggling with that. I'm kind of wrestling with that. I've just about, I think this week I just about got it on track. It's like a great big, you know, oil tanker or ocean liner. For me, it is anyway. That it takes a while to build up speed, you know. But then you're motoring. But I'm just kind of feel like I'm just leaving harbour. Yeah.
And are you writing every day? Are you the sort of person that writes every day?
Yeah, I do write every day. I mean, I do write every day, and I find it's easier if I write every day, because it just takes pressure off the week. If I write every day, then it also gives me time to do other stuff that I want to do with, you know, my dog or my guitars or my boxing. You know, it gives me frees up time. Working every day, I find liberates me, because but what I do these days is you know, I set myself a task and I complete the task, and once I complete the task, I'm a free man. I can do what I like.
Is it 1,000 words a day, or what?
Yeah, well, it doesn't have. Yeah, it can be that, but I usually don't really think in word length anymore. You know, it's kind of I think in terms of, you know, map out this chapter, and then tomorrow complete the chapter. So I think it could be, it could be less than 1,000, it could be more. And I think that once you think I mean, I think the word length thing, writers are obsessed with the number of words. And I think it's impossible to escape from that tyranny, really. I've got it in my mind, okay, 10,000 words a month between here and 1st of December. And then you hit your deadline. So there is, it's a marathon and you can't move completely at your own pace. But I think that there's other things that are more important than that. I think that it's a marathon and you have to stay happy and sane, So I think just giving yourself a task, saying this is what you've got to do today. Can you do that? Can you just, and often, that takes the pressure off, if you're, I felt such, The Murder Bag was the first book in the Max Wolfe series. And I had a lot riding on it. I'd kind of taken a couple of years off. I'd spent kind of £250,000, which was my savings, on just thinking about this book. I just thought about it for a year. Didn't do anything but, should he have a wife? Should he have a daughter? And I kind of worked out who this guy should be. But there's no guarantees. The fact that he did, Man and Boy 10, 15, 20 years ago, absolutely doesn't mean a thing. Not for the industry, not for readers, not for anybody. When I was completing it, there was a lot riding on it. There was a real lot riding on it. It would have been, been hard. It would have been a hard pill to swallow if it hadn't been a success. And we sold it in 24 hours. It went to #1. So I was kind of happy ever after. But then after that, I thought, I can't do that again. I just can't do that again. And my editor, Selena Walker at Penguin Random House, saying to me, can you write one that's as good? You don't have to try and be better than that. And just that kind of took enough pressure off me that it set me free. It's just set me free. And I think a lot of writing is confronting the things that are inhibiting you, that are stopping you, and just getting them out of the way. Hemingway always used to say, leave some water in the well at the end of the day. Just leave some water in the well, meaning that if you go back the next day and you're completely bereft and you can't think of anything, you've still got that, whatever the water in the well is, you've got that to work with, and I really believe in that. So yeah, so I mean, every day I work every day because it just makes life easier. But it's not. But that sounds as though I'm like toiling at a coalface, and it's actually not like that. I've just kind of worked out what works for me. I've worked out how to do it. I've worked out how to write a book a year, column a week, magazine column a month. I just worked out what works for me.
Well, congratulations. It clearly is working for you. Tony Parsons, thank you very much for joining us. And Taken is a work of genius. I've really enjoyed reading it. And it's published by Century. Is that right?
Yeah, sounds right. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.